we invite you for a conversation with the WSF 2018 special guests, the NATO Brussels Summit. What have we learned about the state of the alliance? What are the takeaways from the 2018 NATO Brussels Summit? Are the member states truly committed to the 2% GDP spending for defense? Is NATO ready to further strengthen its presence on its eastern flank?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a very important, very timely session. The NATO Brussels Summit recently took place, and within the next 30 minutes, we want to find out what we have learned about the state of the alliance. I have two wonderful speakers here with me who will be more than capable to shed light on the many intricacies and details that have come out of the summit. To my left, of course, he has led NATO as the Secretary General for many years. Delighted to welcome him here. Anders Fogh Rasmussen, ladies and gentlemen. Always happy to see the former commanding general of the US Army Europe. He currently holds the Pershing Chair in Strategic Studies at the Center for European Policy Analysis in Washington. Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, ladies and gentlemen. Anders Fogh Rasmussen, indeed, you as Secretary General, of course, you have overseen many of these summits. There was something in the air about this particular summit in Brussels, and we do want to talk about what we have learned about the state of the alliance. What have been your personal takeaways, your personal highlights from this particular summit?
My personal view is that NATO seems to be militarily strengthened, but politically weakened. Strengthened because actually we invest much more now in defense than we did in the past. Not thanks to Western leaders, but primarily thanks to Putin. Because everybody realizes that after his attack on Ukraine, we woke up to a new security situation. That's why we need to invest much more. Already in September 2014, my last summit, we decided that within the next decade, we would all live up to the 2% pledge. And since 2014, we have invested $50 billion more in defense. But much more is needed. But that's why we have strengthened NATO militarily, also through a strengthening of the territorial defense in the east. We can revert to that. But politically, the alliance has been weakened, primarily because the US president has raised doubts about the credibility of Article 5, and you should never do that. Because now our adversaries are tempted to test the limits of Article 5. So this is my takeaway: militarily strengthened, but politically weakened.
NATO has been politically weakened, says Anders Fogh Rasmussen, Ben Hodges, mainly due to the current president of the United States. Ben Hodges, would you subscribe to that view that NATO has been strengthened militarily but weakened politically?
So the summit in Brussels this summer was actually a very productive summit. People just didn't see that because there was so much focus on burden sharing. And I do wish that the president had not ever put into question Article 5. Never in my life did I think I would hear that. But you set that aside, the fact is the United States' commitment to Europe and to the alliance is greater now than it was even 4 years ago. Everything that the administration of President Obama promised at the Warsaw Summit has been delivered by the Trump administration, plus additional troops, and maybe even more important, the support of the Congress has increased 3 years in a row in the form of the European Deterrence Initiative. So I think that I don't completely agree with the former Secretary General that politically it's weakened, but it certainly is not helpful when the president puts any question, even opens the door, even if it's a negotiating tactic to put pressure on allies. I think the fact that Poland has done so well, setting an example of investment, of modernization, of living up to its Article 3 commitment has been a good example for other members of the alliance.
Would you say then, since you say you don't fully agree with Mr. Rasmussen, are we placing too much emphasis and focus on what the U.S. president is saying rather than what the U.S. government is actually doing vis-a-vis security?
Well, I said that one time to a group of officers. I said, look, watch what we do, not what we say. And somebody said, yeah, but your president is the president of the United States, so what he says does matter. So again, I wish he would be more consistent, more clear. But having said that, the United States needs a very strong European pillar. I think in 15 years, it's not inevitable, but it is a very strong likelihood that we will be at war with China. The United States does not have the capacity to do everything it has to do in Europe and in the Pacific to deal with the Chinese threat. So it's in our interest, and American leadership knows that, it's in our interest that we have a very strong European pillar, that even if not one European country spent €1 on its own defense, stability and security in Europe is in the interest of the United States, and the President knows that, Secretary Mattis knows that. So you're going to see us continue to invest here in Europe, continue to train, to practice rotational forces as well as permanently assigned forces for the eventuality of, in 10 or 15 years, we're going to be having to fight in the Pacific.
And just to clarify, it's your opinion that the United States is still very much committed to NATO?
Well, it's unshakable.
It's unshakable, says Ben Hodges. Hannes Rasmussen, what would you say? Because you have been dismayed clearly by the remarks that were made by the U.S. president.
Absolutely, but he is surrounded by reasonable people in his security team. That's a good thing. Mattis, for instance, served as NATO general. He knows NATO in and out.
Well, let's see how much longer he's going to be around.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the problem. That's the problem. Always there's raised doubts about NATO and the future of American commitment to NATO. I fully agree. If we see acts on the ground, NATO has been strengthened, yes. But politically, still, any US president must realize that for him, words matter. They do. For a US president, not only Pittsburgh, but also Paris is his constituency. He has to realize that. We need American global leadership. When America retreats, the bad guys advance. That's what we're seeing right now. We need a world policeman to restore international law and order. Everywhere you see disorder, you see wars, you see conflicts. People don't know in which direction to walk because they need American political leadership, and we don't have that.
Clearly, one of the sticking points of the previous NATO summit was the renewed commitments on the part of many of its members and spending 2% of its GDP, of course. Donald Trump has singled out a few countries, most notably Germany, of course, in this particular regard. Even his critics say, on this front, he's actually right. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, but he's not the only one. I mean, we heard exactly the same from George Bush, from Obama, from Clinton. All American administrations have pushed the Europeans to invest much more. So, of course, he's right. And I fully support him, but we took that decision long before he became president. Already in September 2014, we reiterated what NATO defense ministers decided already back in 2006, I think, but it was more or less kept as a secret. Now it was raised to the level of heads of state and government. I have no doubt that Chancellor Merkel will keep her pledges. She pledged, together with the Social Democratic Foreign Minister Steinmeier, who is now the president of Germany, to reach 2% by 2024. In the new, well, now I think the goal is 1.5% that's a substantial increase, but it isn't enough. But I have no doubt she will do what she can to live up to her promises in Wales.
Ben Hodges, you know Germany well. You are partially based in Frankfurt and a frequent visitor in Berlin. Germany was indeed very much in the focus of the previous NATO summit in Brussels, about Germany having to step up its game. Knowing Germany well and knowing the players and knowing the mentality when it comes to security, explain to us, how hard will it be that Germany will indeed live up to its commitment that was made in 2014 in Wales?
Well, the Bundeswehr is loaded with talented officers. They know how to build and train ready forces. They are ready to do their task. And in fact, you have German soldiers that are deployed, I think, on 14 different mandated operations around the world. So Germany is, in fact, stepping up. They are framework nation for 3 of the 9 corps that make up the NATO force structure, including the multinational Corps Northeast here in Poland. They were the first nation to step forward to lead an EFP battle group into Lithuania. I mean, really, if you think about it, from July 2016 and in January, February 17, they were deploying into Lithuania, which is lightning speed for any organization. So, and then of course Germany stepped up to be the host nation for the new Joint Sustainment Enabling Command, which will be in Ulm, which is the next level of adaptation by our great alliance to ensure rapid reinforcement and onward movement of troops coming from Western Europe and from North America. So German leadership is there, but it takes political leadership and political will to do something to increase to 1.5 and closer to 2%. And of course, you have a coalition government there.
You see that political leadership lacking?
I see a very, very difficult political situation, a coalition that is under huge stress, as we saw from the results of the elections in Bavaria here just a couple of weeks ago. There's another important election in Hesse coming up this weekend, where I think the CDU will be under huge pressure again. So the nature of a coalition government makes it difficult unless you've got the political leadership that can make the case of why it's in Germany's interest for their own security, but also the mindset of Germans is the European continent, and it's about protecting European citizens, and I think eventually they will get there. We need German leadership, and by the way, the United States, our national defense strategy depends on Germany. The access that we have in Bremerhaven, in Ramstein, Grafenwehr, Vilseck, Stuttgart, Wiesbaden, these are all essential for our global strategy.
We need Germany, and you already said that you firmly believe that Chancellor Merkel will live up to her pledge and promise. You were sitting in the first row during the first panel that we had here with the various foreign ministers, and you listened very intently. And of course, Russia has been coming up on more than one occasion. Now, in your opinion, does NATO need to strengthen its presence on its eastern flank? Obviously, this summit is taking place, this forum is taking place in Warsaw today, and the notion that permanent US military presence in Warsaw is desirable, if not needed, has come up on more than one occasion. What's your take? What's your opinion?
Yes, we need more military presence in the east, and we have done that already. We have strengthened territorial defense by deployment of units, not a permanent presence so far, not permanent, but I would say a continuous, temporarily presence that is very similar to a permanent presence. And we actually need that. I know that the Russians will claim that we are in breach of what we said in the NATO-Russia Founding Act from 1997. That's why I brought it. It says that NATO reiterates that in the current and foreseeable security environment, the alliance will carry out its collective defense rather than by additional permanent stationing of substantial combat forces. We'll do that through necessary interoperability, integration, and capability, etc. But The point is, this was in a quite different security environment. The foreseeable security environment in 1997 was quite different from what we have seen after the Russian attack on Ukraine. This is the reason why we are in full accordance with the Founding Act discussing a more permanent, strengthened NATO presence in the East. I'm very much in favor of that.
Very much in favor of it, of a permanent military presence here on its eastern flank. Ben Hodges, I know that's a topic dear to your heart. A permanent military presence, not just here in Poland, but generally on its eastern flank. Give us your view.
So one of the words that was heard during the Brussels summit, and you still hear in NATO today, is coherence. The need to improve the coherence of NATO's collective security. Beginning with the 2014 Wales summit, and then 16 in Warsaw, and then in 18 in Brussels, development, new initiatives, the NATO Force Integration Unit, the VJTF, Very High Readiness Joint Task Force, the 2% commitment, the new commands being created. Each one of these has had new initiatives, enhanced forward presence battle groups, tailored forward presence in the Black Sea region. So what still needs to be completed is a coherent plan, and SACEUR has the authority now to do the type of planning that needs to be done that would bring that coherence to all of the alliance. And I think the area where we really need to see an increase, not just coherence, but capabilities and structure, is in the Black Sea region. I think for Russia, the Black Sea represents a launching pad into Syria, the Middle East, Eastern Mediterranean. Maybe even more important to them strategically than is the Baltic Sea. And so this is an area where our allies, Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey, need our support and more structure. Frankly, Georgia should be a member of the alliance tomorrow. I don't know what we're waiting for. And I think some rotational presence of U.S. and other troops in Georgia would be a necessary part of that. Ukraine needs our support. Russian ships, stopping Ukrainian ships and merchant vessels in the Sea of Azov illegally all day long, every day. Russia building the bridge across the Kerch Strait was a clear message that they have no intention of ever living up to Minsk, and that they're going to try and choke out Ukraine, at least in the Sea of Azov. So we've got to counter them in the Black Sea region. And that really, and so having more presence in Romania, I think, would be an important part of that. Georgia, developing a new deep water port at Anaklia will make Georgia the portal to Eurasia that the foreign minister talked about earlier today. And with that, when that's done, then you will see everybody in Europe will be very interested in Georgia's security. So all of these things will, I think, help us achieve the coherence that we need.
Ben Hodges pleading for a stronger military presence, not just on its eastern flank, but all the way across the Black Sea region.
Ali, what matters is not permanent basing, it's permanent commitment. Permanent commitment to the security of all the alliance and the cohesion of the alliance. That's what guarantees everybody's security. Today, there are a minimum 2,000 American soldiers in Poland on any given day. Typically, it's up 3,000 or 4,000 doing a variety of tasks. And some of that is permanent structure, such as the Aegis Ashore system, equipment, armored equipment for a brigade in Povitz. So there is a lot of American presence as well as other allies here. So it's permanent commitment.
Anders Fogh Rasmussen, Ben Hodges obviously touched upon expansion of NATO membership in the case of Georgia. What are we waiting for, says Ben Hodges? Are you in favor of incorporating these countries into NATO as soon as possible?
Absolutely, when they fulfill the necessary criteria. Already in 2008, at the NATO summit in Bucharest, we decided that Georgia and Ukraine will become members of NATO. That decision still stands. Of course, every new member must contribute to and improve our security. As far as Georgia is concerned, obviously it is a challenge, let's call it a challenge, that Russia de facto has occupied Abkhazia and South Ossetia. That has to be dealt with. But apart from that, I think Georgia fulfills the necessary criteria. I fully agree. As far as Ukraine is concerned, Ukraine is at full speed forward, fulfilling the necessary criteria. The capability of the Ukrainian security forces has improved significantly during recent years. You still need some reforms, including putting the Ukrainian military under civilian control, but it's working and walking in the right direction. I suggested that at the Brussels summit, Ukraine should have been granted a special status called Enhanced Opportunity Partner status. It is not a guarantee of future membership, but it's a step in the right direction and a clear signal to Russia. So I'm very much in favor of working in the direction NATO decided already back in 2008.
Mm-hmm. Are you concerned? We live in turbulent times. I know it's a cliche that keeps being repeated at these conferences, but we do at the end of the day. The military, the security situation is probably far more urgent and pressing than perhaps at any time in recent history. How concerned are you? How concerned are you that we're moving towards an escalation with Russia?
Yeah, but that's a fact already. So, of course, it is a matter of concern. Also, the dispute about the INF Treaty. I think it's long ago that Russia was in breach of the INF Treaty. And obviously, it is a matter of concern. And I strongly regret that. Let me stress that right from the outset, already as Prime Minister of Denmark, I was in favor of a strengthened cooperation between Russia and the West. I think we have a common interest, economically as well as security-wise, in addressing the current challenges, global challenges, together, instead of being in this competition, or let's put it in this conflict. I really don't understand. I mean, the first time I met President Putin in May 2002, he was strongly pro-Western. He changed his mind in 2005 when he delivered the infamous State of the Union speech in which he stated that the greatest or the biggest geopolitical catastrophe of the last century was the collapse of the Soviet Union. I think he was inspired by the color revolutions in Georgia and Ukraine. He feared that the US in general and CIA in particular were behind those revolutions with the aim to export them to Moscow and get rid of him. And since then, he turned more and more anti-Western and attacked Georgia in 2008 and now Ukraine in 2014. So we have seen an escalation on the Russian side. We have never, ever from NATO side threatened Russia. Never. On the contrary, we have contributed to stabilizing the western border of Russia, which has been an ambition for Russian rulers through centuries. We did that to the benefit of Russia. So I really don't understand the Russian reasoning, and I hope that we can revert to a more constructive relationship. But knowing Putin, I also know that the only way to get him to understand that we need to engage constructively is maintaining a firm hand and transatlantic unity.
Ben Hodges, the wish to revert the current situation obviously is there to de-escalate, very much uttered here by Mr. Rasmussen. How do we do that, though? How do we do that if Mr. Rasmussen says it's all on the Russian side, the ball is in their court?
Well, Russia only respects strength. This is not just about President Putin. This has been for 500 years. They only respect strength. I don't think that Russia thinks in terms of at war or not at war. I think they're in constant struggle, using every means, whether it's misinformation, force, economic, whatever, to coerce all of their neighbors. The last thing that Russia wants is a group of prosperous, democratic, open societies all around their periphery, because then everybody that lives in Russia is going to look and say, "Pooh, it's pretty good over there in Poland or Lithuania or Estonia or Georgia. We want to be like that," which is the last thing that Russia wants. The safest part of Russia's border, I agree completely with Secretary General on this, the safest part of their border is the part that touches NATO, because 6 years ago, the last American tank went home. We had zero, for the first time since 1944, no American tanks in Europe, because we all thought that Russia was going to be a partner. I can remember having Russian troops with us in Bosnia with the IFOR, the implementation force, and we were wrong. We were completely wrong. So now we're having to spend billions of dollars bringing equipment back to Europe to deter Russia from their tendency to want to use force to coerce all their neighbors. And I think it's primarily for internal domestic consumption.
We only have a few minutes left, but I do want to look into the future here, of course, about the future of the alliance. You said that NATO has been militarily strengthened, but many of the threats that we're facing these days are non-military. Just talk about cyber warfare and so on and so forth. How equipped do you think NATO is to deal with these challenges and new threats?
Absolutely better equipped than in the past. But of course, NATO has to adapt to the new security reality through strengthened cooperation with the European Union in countering disinformation, election meddling, etc. It's not only a military question, it's also a civilian question, but I think the EU and NATO should strengthen cooperation on that. Next, I also think NATO should engage much more in counter-terrorism. I would suggest to establish a fund of $1 billion to finance that activity. That would also help certain European countries to put money into that fund and fulfill the 2% pledge that way. We could also establish a special counter-terrorism headquarters within NATO. In general, NATO should focus much more on counter-terrorism. We should also do much more on smart defense, as I call it, to pool resources. Instead of thinking all countries or all member states should have everything on their shelves, we should pool resources, we should help each other, better cross-border cooperation. Also cross-border movement. In that respect, the European Union could do a lot through PESCO to ensure that troops could really move fast across borders if we need to deploy in the East. And finally, I also think NATO should do much more in an outreach to Eastern partners, and I've already mentioned Ukraine. I fully agree that we should do much more in that respect.
Ben Hodges, what does the alliance need to do to stay relevant in the 21st century?
Well, number one, keep adapting the way it has been adapting. This is lightning speed. When you think about an institution that has 28, now 29 nations in it, from 2014 to 2018, all of the things that have happened with strong consensus amongst the alliance, a rapid turnaround for a huge organization within a challenging environment, I think is remarkable. So maintaining this adaptive nature and always prioritizing cohesion of the alliance with American leadership. So that's essential. I think it is time, though, for a more sophisticated approach to burden sharing. Just 2%. I'm not against 2%. I am against it as the only metric that matters. I think the idea of capabilities, investing in capabilities that help give the alliance what it needs. There's got to be another way to look at this that gets us more rail, more bridges, more rail capacity, improved missile defense, cyber defense. I mean, the Ministry of Defense of Germany does not pay for the cyber protection of Bremerhaven. That's another ministry, but it doesn't count towards 2%, but it's essential for us. Or Deutsche Bahn, just enough trains to carry one brigade in all of Europe. That's not enough for the alliance. So how do you incentivize spend investment in infrastructure that's essential for our collective security I think the alliance and working with the European Union is the right approach.
And before we wrap up, yes, please. Before we wrap up, the Warsaw Security Forum always invites young security leaders. I know you spoke to them last year. Actually, can we see a show of hands? Who is part of this group this year? Young security leaders? There can't be more, just one. There you go. Spread out all over the room on this particular side. Before we wrap up, I want to get a quick assessment. What would you tell these young generation of security leaders, those who will be in charge in the next few years, to get us out of this dilemma that we might be in? What would be your words of advice to them?
Well, first of all, I was so impressed when I saw them last night to see such smart, talented young men and women that are already indicating an interest and a commitment to national security and government service when there's options to make a lot more money doing other things. The fact that they were committed to that was very impressive. And I was also impressed that at least half of the group were women, women stepping forward to be a part of this. I would say you have to get the policy right. In democratic countries, your soldiers will do what they're told to do, and they'll do it extremely well. But you have to get the policy right, and the policy part is the hard part. Not throwing military to solve a problem, but what is the political end state that you're trying to achieve? If you don't invest in getting that right, then you can put millions of soldiers. I mean, look how long we've been in Afghanistan, and all of us have paid a price if you don't get the policy right from the beginning.
It's wonderful to have two renowned international security experts here addressing directly the young security leaders. Andres Fogh Rasmussen, also your words of advice. What should these young leaders look out for?
Yeah, I fully agree with General Hodges. I would just add to that. I think politically it's of utmost importance to cultivate the relations across the Atlantic because transatlantic unity will remain the cornerstone of not only European but transatlantic security. And if we do not cultivate those relations, that is, if we do not travel, if we do not visit each other, if we do not attend universities or military colleges across the Atlantic, then gradually you will see a rift across the Atlantic. I think for young people it's a big challenge to cultivate the transatlantic relations, so that would be my advice.
Ladies and gentlemen, what have we learned about the state of alliance? I think you would agree with me when I say quite a lot within 30 minutes. Having these two gentlemen here share their thoughts and opinions with us, it's been a true privilege. Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking them. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.